Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome to Nonprofit Enthusiast Live. I'm your host, Lasheena Williams, and so glad to be back here with you all. I'm so excited for today's guest from Taproot, and you all know our last session we were talking about volunteerism. So we're going to continue that conversation and learn more about Taproot, the resources that they have, along with tips for your organization. So I'm going to bring up Grace Luitza to join us. Hi, Grace.
Hi. Oh, what a wonderful intro. That music is so lively. It was awesome to be brought in. It's so lovely to be here.
Oh, awesome. So glad to have you here. It's always a good time when we have Taproot here and just sharing the different resources that you all provide. But before we get into all of that, if you can just share a little bit about yourself and then how you ended up in the arena of nonprofits.
Yeah, I love that we start this way with a little bit of the get to know you. So, a little bit about my journey. I am a social worker. That's where everything kind of began for me. And I really hold on to, I'm more in the nonprofit organization and organizational development kind of realm now, but really hold on to that discipline as it's a huge part of who I am. I kind of through that process was able to work in more of a traditional capacity with immigrants and refugees where I was really exposed to newcomers and the needs that were ever evolving. And I worked with nonprofits that were kind of more on that grassroots level, and could really see the power of what it's like to serve a community directly. And also got the chance to work with some wonderful volunteers and see the transformational power of volunteerism. And that's what connected me to Taproot and this idea of skills based volunteering, which I'm excited to get into. But my journey to nonprofits is through social work.
Wow. Thank you so much for that. So then what was your journey to social work?
Oh yeah, this is a good question. I always thought I wanted to be a lawyer, and I had a professor at one point who said, he was kind of advising me, and he said, if you are interested in kind of making the change, sometimes it's hard to be a lawyer wanting to make the change in a system that is very firm around you, and so you might want to explore some options outside of that. I had taken an aptitude test, and it said that social work might be a path for me. Tried out a like policy class. So my entrance into social work was actually through the policy side, and just fell in love with this idea of like systems change at every level, working both in the micro one to one and taking those lessons into groups and communities and the policy at the top. So really loved the structure that social work brought in and just fell in love and kept running since then.
Love it. So tell us about the work that you do at Taproot.
Yeah. So a little bit of context about Taproot. I mentioned skills-based volunteering. So Taproot is a nonprofit herself, as all of the nonprofit enthusiasts might be. And our goal is to serve as an intermediary to connect organizations. With skilled volunteers to help them tackle their organizational challenges. So building on that professional expertise that volunteers might spend all of their career building and giving them an outlet to support nonprofits through that. And my role specifically at Taproot, I'm a manager on our pro bono services team, but I'm really the volunteer manager. So I work with our volunteer community, work on engaging them and helping them feel supported, and like they're set up for success in working with our nonprofits.
Ooh, that is awesome. So I'm excited to get into this conversation a little bit more, especially learning that the work that you do at Taproot is also managing the volunteers themselves. So, what strategies would you have for nonprofit organizations when it comes to, working with volunteers in order to have a successful volunteer program?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've tried to set up is just this really open communication at every stage of engagement. And I also encourage all of our volunteers to make sure that they're doing that with the nonprofit partners they're working with as well. The pace of work can be a little bit different in the nonprofit world than in corporate. and challenges change and things are always adapting. So just really like centering that and setting those expectations up front. I think that's been the key to getting people in the door and keeping them there. I also think that volunteers are eager to share their expertise. Like they want to be involved in making change in an organization, and sometimes they overshare. I'm sure everyone who's managed volunteers has had a situation where you're like, I can't handle that right now. Um,
Mhm.
but finding spaces for them to plug into the structure of your organization, I think really helps build their kind of long-term investment and make them feel themselves in your work, so they keep coming back.
Well, that's awesome. So, like right now, for many organizations, with the year kind of wrapping up, they're starting to get ready for what the upcoming year would look like. Probably looking at some of their successes from their volunteer programs, some of the challenges they may have faced. What kind of tool or let's say when it comes to reflecting, maybe it's some sort of volunteer plan or something like that. What kind of tool would you recommend for organizations when it comes to going through this process? And what are some things that you would suggest that they definitely have to include when going through this year-end review process?
Yeah, and I love the space for that reflection, because I
Mhm.
think at the end of, I know everyone's kind of going through that, trying to build their goals, but I think being really intentional about that, especially with your volunteers, can help set up some improvements and future successes. And I think if there's time for it, if you have the chance to run focus groups, we've been talking a lot about focus groups at Taproot with our volunteers, and really being able to facilitate conversations with them, use it as both a networking opportunity. I think volunteers are really eager to connect with each other as much as they are with your organization. And then also kind of use it as like a user feedback situation where they're kind of sharing tips with each other, connecting with each other, but also you can ask some questions about their experience with you, if they've done one project, or one-off volunteering, or even your MVP volunteers. Bring in some folks from across the engagement spectrum to share their insights and expertise. Can be a nice way to, like, rather than just do a survey, really help them feel like their stories being heard, and that you can kind of take then that feedback going forward and see what you can do to change things up. And now you have some folks who are even more committed to coming back.
I love it. So, how frequent would you say? Because I love the idea of a focus group. Because sometimes surveys, let's say people may just kind of hurry through it, but not
Mm.
necessarily sit down and really process the experience. But a focus group almost um, forces them to have to kind of provide, information. So, with that, how frequent would you say they need to do, like, conduct a focus group? Organizations should consider doing.
Yeah, I feel like at minimum once a year. And I think it can be really helpful if you're kind of considering doing other kinds of engagement. So we've talked about doing kind of a broader sector survey to talk about, like, what are volunteers experiencing, not just at Taproot, but in their work with nonprofits, in their kind of what's motivating them to do this work. More of kind of an overall motivation and understanding of the behavior behind skills-based volunteering. Um, and we do this kind of every couple of years, but I
Mhm.
think it can be really helpful to inform those kinds of efforts to start with, just more of a pulse of just like having a conversation with some folks in your network. And I think it can be really informal too. Like, it doesn't need to be this long, recruitment process. Just pull in, and even if it's just like you have a lunch that you use to break up your hands-on volunteering, I think it could be helpful to bring people in to just ask them some casual questions and help connect them to each other.
Love that. And so, what are some other tips that you might have for organizations, especially around this time of the year?
Yeah, and so I know we're getting very close to like Giving Tuesday.
Mhm.
Lots of folks might be focused on their fundraising efforts, and kind of ramping those up towards the end of the year. And one of the things that I've loved about my time at Taproot so far is this kind of reframing of fundraising into kind of this idea of resource raising. And so kind of going beyond just the dollars that you can get, but what does it look like to bring in networks of support, or individuals who are committed to your cause and will speak on your behalf. And I think a great entrance to that is this kind of volunteering where you're asking for more than it can be helpful to start with something that's more hands-on, but asking them to kind of take the next step. If you see people being interested, get them to help you build something out in your organization. And we've found that in our like post-programming surveys, it's an astounding number of about 60% of our volunteers continue to work, that have made it through project completion, continue to work with their nonprofit in some sort of capacity afterwards. And so this kind of longer term engagement really is an investment into having those volunteers come back as board members or continue to contribute to your cause. And then also sometimes they donate. So it can kind of have that roundabout effect of also bringing in those dollars in the end as well.
I love that. Um, and I'm thinking through how to frame this question
Yeah.
because you kind of touched on some of it. Let's talk about some ways that we can advance volunteers in
Mm.
the sense of they may can't come into the organization, let's say through Taproot or through another, through a project, a one-off project. Let's just say that. How can we build the, I guess, the relationship and time with that volunteer to hopefully advance them to these next levels? What are some other levels within an organization that can potentially be there? You mentioned like going the donor route.
Mhm.
What are some other ways to engage volunteers and help them advance within your mission?
Yeah, and I think some of it starts with, when you understand their motivation and like what brought them to your organization, then you can create kind of a tailored pathway for that kind of volunteer. So if someone's coming in because they read about your mission on LinkedIn or in a bulletin or some sort of post, and you gather that information from them, then you can think about, okay, so their motivation is because they're tied to the community I'm serving. So when they come in to volunteer, then you want to kind of tailor their experience so that is kind of forefront to them. Help them understand the story of the work that you do while you have the ear, and then you can kind of continue to build on that to bring them into more involvement. And then you talked about kind of these projects leading into other things like boards,
Hmm.
donations, all of that. I think an underrated aspect of this kind of engagement cycle is celebration. And
Mm,
it can be really challenging because once you've worked on a project, you've invested so much time into the project management and bringing in the right resources to support it. So sometimes at the end of it, I feel like you're like, I need this to be done and dusted, move on.
mhm.
But it's really important to invest in that celebration, to keep people in your network and feel like it wasn't just a transaction. Especially with professional volunteering and offering their skills in the form of like a capacity building project, it can be really helpful to spotlight them on your LinkedIn or share them to your network, because there is a mutual aspect of volunteering, and if you can kind of tap into that like 1 + 1 = 3 type of
Mhm.
thing, then the motivation will like continue moving forward and they'll keep coming back.
Love it. Love. So, okay, your path from social work to now managing volunteers is a story of many volunteer managers. Like many
Mm,
volunteer managers did not study volunteer management.
right.
Something got them into that field. What would you say were the most, let's say, the top three resources that help prepare you for that transition from social work to volunteer, managing volunteers?
Yeah, and this is kind of taking resources like a
Hmm.
loose interpretation.
Yeah.
But I really do think that the biggest thing that helped prepare me to manage volunteers was to volunteer,
Mm,
experience it on the other end, and have experiences where I was a volunteer and I wished I could do more, or have experiences where I was working with a nonprofit, and I wanted to connect deeper. And so seeing those experiences and having them myself really, I think, was the biggest tool in terms of understanding how I can support volunteers to the best of my ability, and also to tap in into the desire for that connection, which I think is really the biggest motivation for most volunteers. Um, in terms of like other resources, the kind of local, there's always like a local volunteer management association.
Mhm.
And I've been a part of a few, and I find them really helpful as well, just to bounce ideas off and um, hear from other volunteer managers what's worked for them, what their learnings are, and try and apply those in my own context. So any communities you can find of similar kind of professional paths, I've found that really helpful as well.
Awesome. Thank you. So tell us a little bit about the pro bono program and how our nonprofits can benefit from it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I mentioned, Taproot exists to support other nonprofits. So, one of the ways we do that is through our free online platform, which is called Taproot Plus. And this platform enables any 501(c)(3) to sign up for an account and request support from our network of volunteers. So, you can log on and you'll fill out kind of an onboarding form, similar to if you've created any account. Really, it's pretty straightforward there. And then we go through an approval process. Once you're approved, you'll get an email, and you can start posting projects. It's also important to note we have 1 hour consultation calls as well. So if you aren't ready for like a multi-week project, or you don't have the capacity for it right now, but you're looking for just a little bit of support, you can sign up for a session to work with a professional on brainstorming or project scoping, kind of get started through that lens as well.
Ooh, I love that. And so do you have to complete the application process before you can sign up for that coaching or that call?
So the calls are you post a request for them. So
Okay.
similar to the project side, if you were like, I want to learn more about what it would take to build out a marketing strategy.
Mhm.
You could post that like simple couple sentences, and volunteers will apply
Mhm.
to meet with you, and you can read through their profiles and their statements of interest, and then you schedule a call from there.
Okay, got it. So it because you mentioned the call just now, if like you have a project, it might be a one-off type of project. Is that the same call or is it more like with the Taproot member?
It's all with volunteers. So Taproot
Okay, got
serves
it.
as like the connector point.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
what I was thinking is, and I'll just ask this question: is there an opportunity that, let's say, your organization has multiple projects, you don't
Mm.
know which one might be the one to kind of put through the system, and you just need someone, possibly from the Taproot side, just to be able to kind of bounce, like, hey, here are the projects we're looking at, based off of your volunteer base. Which ones do you think would be the best for us to kind of submit for? Do you have something available for that?
Yeah, so we have a very active customer kind of support. And so
Okay.
people are definitely welcome to send kind of an email as a first touch point. We also host monthly kind of office hours for nonprofits. And so this is kind of a space where they can come and learn a little bit more about our programming. And then also, if they have kind of a specific direction that they're looking to get support in, they can come to that and kind of discuss through it in community with other nonprofits. And that's something that they can sign up for on our website.
Awesome. Okay,
Yeah.
love it. Anything else that you want to share, or any tips or anything about Taproot that you want to share before we end today's conversation?
I just thought of one other thing with what we were just talking about, of like prioritizing projects.
Mhm.
That can be another space for a volunteer also,
Mm,
because many of them can help with, oh, you talked about this end goal, but you might need this infrastructure in place first. So kind of
mhm.
using that consultation call can also be a way to help prioritize needs, and figure out what that root cause is to really address the right thing in the moment. Um, our volunteers are experts in what they do.
Yes.
And I often feel like as a nonprofit leader, it's a common experience to feel like you're in a room alone. You know, I like you have a little bit of knowledge about something, but you just need a little bit of support to go deeper. And Taproot really is that connection point into finding that extra person, the just extra piece of support to dig a little bit deeper into what you're trying to learn, and build out the project that you're looking to achieve.
I love it. I love it. And I know I've seen different projects from Taproot. And actually, I also have a nonprofit, and we went through a whole oh, I can't remember the name, but it was like a 2 day
Mhm.
style, where we kind of went through a different project, and we ended up with our plan at the end that we used
Yeah.
and executed. And it was absolutely amazing. And I believe we had like a project manager from the
Mhm.
volunteer side that managed the rest of the group. And we were kind of able to provide information based off of what was needed to create the plan for one of our programs. So I definitely know the value of Taproot and
Mhm.
the amazing volunteers and groups that you all work with. So I really appreciate you coming on and sharing this resource, and just hope that those of you that's tuning in, if you have not tapped into the resources that Taproot has, I strongly encourage you to check it out, because I'm sure there's something that you've had on the back burner for a while that the group of volunteers over at Taproot can help you with once you submit that project. So please make sure this is your sign to go ahead and check that out. That project that you've been holding the entire 2025 that has not been completed, go ahead and submit it for 2026 to get done.
Yes, the backlog you can start chipping away at with
Yes.
volunteers. And on the note of like fundraising, we did do um, like a panel with some of our volunteers who actually support with grant writing and things like that. And they shared some tips about utilizing pro bono for those kinds of things. So if you're
Ooh.
interested in that, we got resources like that as well on our page.
Love it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on and just sharing so much resources and insights. I definitely appreciate it.
Thanks. It was so lovely to be here, and what a cool experience to connect with other nonprofit leaders and in this community. No one's alone. That's the takeaway.
Right. Mhm. Definitely not alone, especially when we have a resource like Taproot with plenty of help to help us.
And we're excited. Yeah, I
Yes.
definitely connect and happy to answer any questions that folks might have.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us, and thank you all for joining us. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat box, and we'll definitely make sure that you get the responses. Um, any way, if someone does have a question or just to stay connected with you, any way that they can do that?
Yeah, the best way to see like updates from Taproot, our website's obviously a good source of truth, which is taprootfoundation.org.
Mhm.
You can also look us up on LinkedIn. We're fairly active there. In
Mhm.
terms of connecting with me specifically, I'm also available on LinkedIn, or you can reach out directly to my email, which is just grace@taprootfoundation.org. I'm looking forward
Awesome.
to connecting.
Thank you. All right. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next time on Nonprofit Enthusiast Live. Bye, everyone.